You keep waiting for a sign, a verse that jumps off the page, a voice in the quiet, some kind of confirmation that God actually sees what you're going through and knows what you're supposed to do next. And when it doesn't come the way you expected, you start to wonder, is God even paying attention? Here's what I want to show you today. God has probably already answered you. Not in the dramatic way you pictured. In smaller ways you've been trained to overlook. By the end of this video, you'll be able to look back at the last few months of your life and see His fingerprints on things you assumed were just coincidence, timing, or your own decisions. Let's talk about the 7 signs God is guiding you. Starting with the one almost everyone misses first. Most of us grew up with this picture of guidance that looks like Moses and the burning bush. A dramatic moment, an unmistakable voice, total clarity in one instant. But if you read through Scripture carefully, that's actually rare. For most people in the Bible, Ruth, Joseph, David, the early church in Acts, guidance came gradually. Through people, through circumstances, through a persistent sense in their spirit that wouldn't let them go. Proverbs 16:9 says it plainly, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Notice the order. You plan. He directs the steps. That means guidance is often happening underneath your own decisions, not instead of them. So if you've been waiting for guidance to interrupt your life, you might have missed it, because it's been working through your life the whole time. Sign 1. A recurring restlessness you can't explain. Here's the first one, and it's easy to mistake for anxiety. Think about a decision, relationship, or habit that you can't seem to feel at peace about, no matter how much you rationalize it. You've made the pros and cons list. Everyone around you says it makes sense. But something in you keeps pulling back. That unsettled feeling isn't always a personality flaw. Colossians 3:15 talks about letting the peace of Christ rule in your heart, literally act as an umpire, making the call. When peace won't settle on something, that's often information, not just emotion. Practically, don't override that restlessness just because it's inconvenient. Sit with it. Ask what specifically it's responding to before you move forward. Sign 2. Doors that keep closing, no matter how hard you push. This one is frustrating in the moment and obvious in hindsight. You apply for the job, and it falls through. You try to reconnect with someone, and it never lands. You push toward a plan 3, 4, 5 times, and something always gets in the way. We tend to read closed doors as failure. But look at Acts 16, where Paul and his companions tried to go into Bithynia, and Scripture says plainly the Spirit did not allow them. That closed door wasn't punishment. It redirected them straight into Europe, into one of the most significant expansions of the early church. Practically, after the 3rd or 4th resistance on the same path, stop asking, "How do I force this?" open and start asking, "What is this closed door protecting me from or pointing me toward?" Sign 3. The same message, showing up from different directions. This is the one people notice but rarely name. A friend says something in passing. Then a sermon touches the exact same point. Then you read a verse that weekend that says almost the same thing, unprompted. Individually, each one seems like nothing. Together, it's a pattern. This isn't superstition. It's how God has often worked through community and confirmation. Proverbs 11:14 talks about safety being found in an abundance of counselors. God rarely isolates guidance to one source alone. He tends to confirm it in more than one place, so you're not relying on a single, possibly misread moment. Practically, start keeping a simple note on your phone. When something strikes you more than once from unrelated sources within a short window, write it down. Patterns are easier to see in writing than in memory. Sign 4. A conviction that won't let you go, even when you try to ignore it. This is the sign most people fight the hardest because it usually asks something of you. Maybe. It's a conversation you know you need to have, A habit you know you need to end. A relationship you know needs boundaries. You've tried to drop it, distract yourself, talk yourself out of it, and it keeps resurfacing. John 16:8 describes the Spirit's role as one who convicts, not to shame you, but to correct your direction before the damage compounds. Conviction that persists, especially quietly, without anyone reminding you, is rarely random. Practically, the goal isn't to feel guilty. It's to ask what specific action that conviction is pointing toward and take the smallest honest step toward it this week. Sign 5. People who speak into your life at exactly the right moment. This sign is easy to write off as luck, but the timing is often the tell. Someone reaches out the same week you were struggling silently. A mentor says the one sentence you needed without knowing what you were carrying. A stranger's comment stays with you for weeks. Throughout Scripture, guidance frequently comes through people. Nathan confronting David, Ananias being sent to Paul, Barnabas advocating for a young, still suspicious church member. God has a consistent pattern of using ordinary people as messengers, often without them even realizing it. Practically, don't dismiss well-timed words just because the messenger seems unremarkable. Write down what was said and why it landed. Revisit it later. Timing often makes more sense in hindsight than it does in the moment. Sign 6. A growing clarity about what you're not supposed to do. This one is often overlooked because it feels like the absence of guidance instead of the presence of it. Sometimes God's direction shows up first as elimination. You become increasingly certain this relationship isn't it. This job isn't it. This version of your future isn't the one you're meant to chase. That's not confusion. That's narrowing. Isaiah 30:21 describes a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Specifically, when you're tempted to turn to the right or the left, guidance often shows up first as removing wrong turns before it reveals the right one. Practically, instead of demanding clarity about the whole path, write down what you're now certain isn't the way. That list is progress, even when it doesn't feel like it. Sign 7. A deep settled sense of not yet that turns out to be right. Here's the one that requires the most trust because it looks like nothing is happening. You wanted to move forward. Months ago, something held you back, timing, resources, a check in your spirit. And later, you find out that waiting protected you from a mess you couldn't see coming. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us there's a time for every activity under heaven. Delay isn't automatically denial. Sometimes the guidance is the pause itself. Practically, when not yet keeps showing up, resist treating it as failure. Ask what preparation might be happening in the waiting that couldn't happen in the rush. None of these 7 signs work well in isolation, and none of them replace Scripture. They're meant to be read alongside it, not instead of it. But together, they form a pattern most people are living inside of right now without recognizing it. The real shift isn't asking God for a louder sign. It's learning to notice the guidance He's already been giving. Through peace, through resistance, through people, through timing, through conviction, through elimination, and through the pause itself. If you look back over the last 6 months of your life through this lens, I think you'll find at least 2 or 3 of these signs already present. Not because you did something to earn them, but because guidance has never depended on your ability to notice it. It's been happening whether you saw it or not. The question isn't whether God has been guiding you. The question is whether you're willing to look back and see it. Which of these 7 signs do you recognize in your own life right now, and which one have you been ignoring? Tell me in the comments. I read every one, and this is exactly the kind of conversation worth having. Together,